I walked into my parents' house smiling, thinking it was just another family dinner. But the room went silent the second I stepped inside. Every face was pale. Every eye avoided mine. My husband would not look up. My sister was shaking. And then my father said the words that split my life in half. "We need to talk." In that moment, my stomach dropped, my heart started pounding, and a cold fear crawled up my spine. I did not know what they were about to say. But I knew one thing. Whatever it was, it would destroy someone. The question was, would it destroy me, or would I be the one who made them pay? My name is Layla, and I was 32 years old when my life split into a before and an after. Before, I believed loyalty was unbreakable. Before, I believed blood meant protection. Before, I believed love was enough to keep people honest. After that night, I learned how wrong I was. I had been married to Adam for 6 years. 6 years of building a life that looked perfect from the outside. We had a small but beautiful apartment, a routine that felt comfortable, and plans for children that we talked about every other week like it was a promise already signed by fate. He was charming, calm, and always knew how to say the right things. People trusted him instantly. My parents adored him. My friends said I was lucky. Even my younger sister, Noor, used to look at him like he was the definition of a good man. That should have been my first warning. But love makes you blind to patterns that are obvious in hindsight. That night, I walked into my parents' house expecting nothing more than a warm meal and light conversation. The air felt heavy the second I stepped inside. This was not the kind of heaviness you can explain. It presses against your chest without permission. It makes your skin tighten. It whispers that something is wrong before anyone opens their mouth. Everyone was already seated. My mother would not meet my eyes. My father looked like he had aged 10 years in 1 hour. Adam stared at the floor. Noor was gripping her hand so tightly her knuckles were white. I smiled anyway. I always smiled when things felt uncomfortable. "What is going on?" I asked, trying to sound casual. That was when my father said, "We need to talk." And I knew. I did not know what I knew, but I knew that nothing would be the same after whatever came next. Adam and I met when I was 24. I worked at a small marketing firm, dreaming of someday starting my own agency. He came in as a client, confident, polished. He made me feel seen in a way that was intoxicating. He listened. He remembered small details. He made me feel chosen. That kind of attention is powerful, especially when you are young and trying to prove your worth to the world. I fell fast, too fast. But it felt right. Noor, my sister, was 3 years younger than me. We were close in the way sisters are when they grow up sharing secrets, clothes, and late-night conversations. I protected her. I defended her. I forgave her mistakes without hesitation. When Adam joined our family, she welcomed him like a brother. They joked easily. They teased each other. I found it comforting. It felt like harmony. It felt safe. That illusion would become my greatest regret. There were small moments I ignored. Tiny fractures in what looked like perfection. Adam would sometimes disappear into another room when Noor came over. Noor would avoid eye contact with me on certain days. Conversations would stop abruptly when I walked in. I told myself it was coincidence. I told myself I was overthinking. That was easier than confronting the possibility that something ugly was forming right in front of me. The night everything collapsed, my parents had asked us all to come over without explanation. That alone should have made me nervous. They were not the type to call meetings without reason. I trusted them. I trusted Adam. I trusted Noor. Trust is a dangerous thing when it is misplaced. It gives people power over your reality. As I took my seat, my heart started to race. The silence stretched too long. My father cleared his throat and his voice trembled. "Layla, what we are about to say is not easy. But you deserve the truth." That word, truth, it landed heavy. Truth always comes when lies have been living too comfortably. My mother wiped her eyes. My sister looked like she might faint. Adam finally lifted his head, and in his eyes I saw something I had never seen before. Fear, real fear. Not the kind you fake to avoid trouble, the kind that knows there is no escape. I wanted to laugh, I wanted to scream, wanted to run. Instead, I sat still. That is the strange thing about shock. It does not always make you move. Sometimes it freezes you like a statue waiting to be shattered. My father spoke again, slowly, carefully, like every word was glass. We discovered something about Adam and Noor. My chest tightened. My breath became shallow. The room seemed to shrink. They had been lying to you, he continued, for a long time. That was the moment my world started to tilt. Not fall. Tilt. Like a building that has not collapsed yet but is already beyond saving. I looked at Noor. She could not look at me. That alone said more than any confession. My own sister. The girl I protected. The girl who slept in my bed during storms when she was scared. The girl I trusted with my life. My heart started pounding so hard I thought it would break through my ribs. I turned to Adam. Is this true? My voice did not sound like mine. Sounded distant, hollow. He opened his mouth, then closed it. That hesitation was the loudest answer I had ever heard. I felt humiliation rise like heat in my face. But beneath it was something darker, something colder, something that was quietly taking notes. Because even in that moment of devastation, a small part of me was already changing, already calculating, already understanding that the woman who walked into this house was not the woman who would walk out. They had not just betrayed my trust. They had stolen my reality. Every memory suddenly felt contaminated. Every smile felt fake. Every family gathering felt like a performance where I was the only one who did not know the script. I realized then that this was not just about infidelity. This was about disrespect, about being made a fool in my own life, about being the last to know in a room full of people who smiled at me like nothing was wrong. That kind of betrayal does not ask for forgiveness, demands reckoning. And as I sat there surrounded by silence and guilt and fear, one thought kept repeating in my mind like a slow drumbeat. They thought I was weak. They thought I would break quietly. They thought wrong. If you have ever trusted someone with your whole heart, only to discover they were playing you behind your back, this story is for you. If you have ever been underestimated, disrespected, or made to feel small by the people who should have protected you, stay with me. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let this story remind you that silence is not weakness. Sometimes it is the calm before justice. After that night, nothing exploded the way people imagine betrayal does. There were no screams, no dramatic exits, no slammed doors. Everything became quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that feels heavier than noise. Adam and Noor avoided me, but not enough to be honest. They moved around the truth like cowards, stepping carefully, pretending the ground was not cracking beneath us. Adam still slept in our apartment. He still ate at our table. He still looked at me like a man trying to act normal while standing on a burning floor. His kindness became forced. His words sounded rehearsed. Every sentence carried the weight of something unsaid. I watched him closely, not with love anymore, but with observation. He was nervous. That told me everything I needed to know. Noor stopped calling. "Kay?" When she did speak, her voice was thin, fragile, as if she were the victim. That alone made something twist inside me. Victimhood was becoming her shield. It was easier for her to appear broken than to admit she had helped break someone else. They thought I was processing. They thought I was healing. What I was actually doing was seeing them clearly for the first time. Adam started controlling the narrative in subtle ways. He would sigh dramatically and say things like, "This is all so complicated," as if betrayal was a puzzle, not a choice. He told my parents he was confused, that he loved me, that he never meant for things to go this far. Every sentence centered himself. Never me. Never the damage. Never the humiliation. I noticed how often he tried to position Noor as unstable. "She is emotional," he said once. "She does not know what she wants." Kate, that angered me more than if he had insulted me directly. Okay? He was trying to rewrite history, to turn her into the problem so he could remain the misunderstood hero. But Noor was not innocent either. She played her role just as carefully. When I finally confronted her, she cried. Not because she was sorry, but because she was afraid. Fear is not remorse. Fear is self-preservation. I saw the difference in her eyes. She whispered, I never meant to hurt you. I looked at her and said, but you chose to. She had no answer. That silence was louder than any apology. Days passed. Then weeks. Their behavior became more careless. I began to notice patterns. Adam would disappear for hours and return smelling like a different world. Noor would suddenly be unavailable whenever he was. They were not even hiding well anymore. It was like they believed the worst was over. It's like they believed I had already accepted my place in their story. They underestimated the danger of a woman who stops reacting and starts observing. I replayed memories, late nights, missed calls, shared looks I had brushed off. Each memory felt like uncovering another layer of disrespect. They had not just betrayed me once. They had done it repeatedly, casually, confidently. Adam began speaking about separation like it was an inconvenience. We can be mature about this, he said. We can keep things civil. Civil. As if I had spilled coffee on his shirt instead of having my life dismantled by his choices. I smiled and nodded. That frightened him. I saw it in his eyes. My calm confused him. He expected tears, rage, begging. Instead, he was met with quiet. And quiet is unpredictable. Noor started playing the family card. She told my mother she was scared, that she felt trapped, that she did not know how things had gone so far. My mother cried for her. That was when something sharp cut through my chest. I was becoming invisible in my own pain. The betrayal was being reframed into a tragedy about their confusion instead of my devastation. I stopped correcting them. I let the story unfold the way they wanted. People reveal more when they believe you are no longer watching. One evening, Adam came home late. He was distracted, careless, almost relaxed. That was new. We should talk about selling the apartment, he said casually, like he was discussing groceries. That sentence was not accidental. He was already planning a future where I no longer existed. I nodded. Maybe, I said softly. That single word gave him confidence. He thought he was winning. Noor posted pictures online that felt deliberate, places I knew Adam loved, songs he used to play. They were breadcrumbs. Messages without words. I did not confront her. I collected evidence in silence, emotional, behavioral, and eventually tangible. I noticed how Adam started hiding his phone more, how he changed passwords, how he took calls outside, how his patience for me grew thinner, not because I had done anything wrong, but because guilt always turns into irritation when it stays hidden too long. One night, I heard his phone buzz at 3 a.m. I did not touch it. I did not need to. The way he reacted told me everything. He woke up instantly, grabbed it, and turned away from me like a child caught stealing. That image stayed in my mind. They were not just betraying me. They were disrespecting my intelligence. The final straw was a family gathering. Noor and Adam avoided each other in public, but shared glances that felt private, secret, intimate. It was almost insulting how bold they had become. Like they were daring me to speak. I watched them laugh. I watched them pretend. And I felt something shift. The sadness that once lived in my chest was hardening into clarity. They thought the storm had passed. They had no idea it was just gathering strength. The moment I truly broke was not loud. It was not dramatic. It happened on an ordinary afternoon when the sky was gray and the apartment felt colder than usual. I was folding laundry, moving slowly, mechanically, when I found one of Adam's shirts that smelled unfamiliar. Not perfume, not cologne, something softer. The kind of scent that does not belong to strangers. My hands froze, my chest tightened. And suddenly, all the restraint I had been carrying cracked. I sat on the edge of the bed holding that shirt like it was evidence of a crime. that had been happening in my own home while I smiled and stayed quiet. My heart was pounding, not from sadness, but from something sharper, anger that had finally found its voice. I realized I was tired of being the only one who carried the weight of dignity while they carried freedom. I whispered to myself, I will not let them rewrite my story. That was the first time I said it out loud. I had been surviving. Now I wanted control. Every betrayal has a moment where pain stops being the dominant emotion and clarity takes its place. That moment feels dangerous because it removes hesitation. It removes doubt. It removes fear. It replaces them with purpose. I stood up and looked at my reflection in the mirror. My eyes looked different, quieter, focused. I did not see a broken woman anymore. I saw a woman who had been underestimated by the two people who knew her best. That realization alone felt like power. They believed I was fragile. They believed silence meant weakness. They believed patience meant surrender. They were wrong on all three counts. I began replaying everything, every conversation, every excuse, every lie. It was no longer emotional. It was strategic. I was done asking why. Now I was asking how. How long had they planned this? How far were they willing to go? How much were they willing to take from me? And most importantly, how much did they think I would tolerate? That was when I understood something terrifyingly simple. They were not afraid because they did not believe I was capable of action. They thought my love had softened me. They thought my loyalty had weakened me. They thought my kindness had erased my ability to fight. Okay? That miscalculation was about to cost them everything. I started paying attention differently, not like a wounded wife. Like an investigator. I listened to Adam's tone. I observed Noor's timing. I tracked patterns, not on paper. In my mind, I noticed how Adam grew careless when he felt secure. I noticed how Noor became bold when she felt protected. Their confidence was becoming their vulnerability. One evening, Adam spoke about moving on, not emotionally, logistically. He talked about dividing assets, about starting fresh, about keeping things calm for the family. His voice was smooth, almost rehearsed, like he had already practiced this future with someone else. I smiled and nodded. Inside, something snapped into place. He thought I was accepting my loss. What I was actually doing was learning the structure of his escape plan. Noor sent me a message that night. Short, careful. I hope one day you understand. Understand. That word was insulting. There was nothing to understand. It was only something to respond to. I typed a reply and erased it. Then typed again and erased it again. Finally, I sent nothing. Silence is more powerful when you control it. They were waiting for reactions, tears, accusations, chaos. They were not prepared for calculation. That night, I did not sleep. I lay in the dark listening to Adam breathe. I studied the rhythm of a man who believed he was safe. I wondered how long he had slept peacefully while destroying my world in secret. That thought hardened something inside me. I promised myself then that I would not explode. I would not rush. I would not act emotionally. I would act precisely. The next day, I started organizing. Quietly, carefully, I gathered documents, bank statements, messages I had ignored before. I memorized schedules. I watched behavior. Every piece of information became a brick in something that was being built inside me. Revenge is not rage. Revenge is patience. And I had more patience than they ever imagined. I stopped seeing them as people who had hurt me and started seeing them as players who had made mistakes. Overconfidence is always a mistake. It blinds people to consequences. They were relaxed. I was alert. They were planning their future. I was designing their reckoning. One afternoon, my mother asked me if I was truly okay. I looked at her and said, I am clearer than I have ever been. That was not a lie. Pain had sharpened my vision. Betrayal had refined my resolve. I was no longer the woman waiting to be chosen. I was the woman deciding what would happen next. The fear I once felt was gone. In its place was calm. And calm is dangerous when it belongs to someone who has been pushed too far. I did not want chaos. I did not want noise. I wanted impact. I wanted them to feel, in one precise moment, the weight of every lie, every secret, every shared glance, every stolen promise. That afternoon, I made my decision. I would not confront them. I would not warn them. I would not give them time to prepare. I would let them continue believing I was broken, okay? And then I would show them how wrong they were. I did not rush. I slowed down. That was the first step. When people think revenge, they imagine speed and fire. But real power lives in stillness. I began acting softer, kinder, more agreeable. I laughed when Adam made jokes. Kay asked Noor how she was feeling. I became harmless in their eyes. Kay and harmless people are never suspected. Step 1 was information. I needed clarity before control. I started by checking everything I had once trusted blindly. Bank statements, shared accounts, property documents, messages I had ignored because love told me to look away. Each discovery tightened my chest, but I welcomed the pain. Pain meant truth. Truth meant leverage. The apartment was half mine. Our savings were mostly mine. The investments Adam had bragged about were built on money I had earned. That realization did not hurt. It empowered me. I created copies of everything, digital, physical, hidden in places Adam would never think to look. My bag, my car, small folder inside a book on the shelf. Every copy felt like a safety net tightening around him. Step 2 was patience. I needed them to feel secure, so I gave them what they wanted: calm, acceptance. Predictability. Adam said, "You are handling this better than I expected." I smiled. I have no choice. That sentence made him relax. He thought I had surrendered. He did not understand that I had begun. Noor started visiting less carefully. Her eyes were lighter, her movements less cautious. Guilt fades when people believe consequences will never arrive. Step 3 was timing. I waited for the moment when both of them would be exposed without my voice raising even once. My parents were planning a large family gathering, a celebration for my father's birthday. Everyone would be there, extended family, friends, people who trusted Adam, people who protected Noor. I volunteered to organize it. Adam looked surprised. "Are you sure?" "Yes," I said. "It feels right." That was not a lie. It felt perfectly right. The day of the gathering, I wore white, not because I felt innocent, but because I wanted contrast, calm on the outside, fire beneath. The house was filled with noise, laughter, glasses clinking, the smell of food, warm lights casting shadows that made everything feel normal. That normality almost made me laugh. They were celebrating while standing on the edge of collapse. Adam stayed close to me, protective, nervous. Noor avoided my eyes but stayed near the kitchen. Safe space, coward's territory. I waited. Timing is everything. When my father raised his glass for a speech, I felt my pulse slow. This was it. The room quieted. Conversations paused. All eyes moved forward. I stepped beside him gently. "Before you continue," I said, "there is something I would like to share." Adam turned pale. Noor froze. The silence was complete. I could hear my own breathing, slow, steady. I pulled out my phone. "Today is about truth," I continued. "And I believe truth deserves light." Adam whispered, "Layla, not here." I looked at him and said, "Here is exactly where it belongs." I played the audio first, a recording of Adam speaking on the phone late one night. His voice was clear, confident, careless. "I am just waiting for the right moment. She is too calm. But it is only a matter of time." Gasps filled the room. Noor took a step back. Then I showed messages, screenshots, dates, times, months of betrayal compressed into undeniable proof. Someone whispered my sister's name. My mother sat down slowly, like her legs had given up. Adam tried to speak. "This is private," I replied. "So was my marriage. Short, clean. Final, Noor started crying loudly. Dramatically, I raised my hand gently. Save the performance, I said. You had years to choose loyalty. The room was silent again, heavy, suffocating. My hands were steady. My voice did not shake. That was my greatest victory. They could not label me emotional. They could not dismiss me as irrational. I was composed, controlled, precise. Adam tried one last time. We can talk about this later. I said you already did. Without me. People started asking questions, harsh ones, real ones. Adam could not answer fast enough, nor could not hide behind tears anymore. I watched their confidence crumble, their posture change, their power dissolve. This was not revenge built on cruelty. This was justice built on exposure. The lies died in public. And silence finally belonged to me. For a few seconds after the last recording ended, no one moved. It was like the room itself had stopped breathing. Faces were frozen mid-expression, mouths slightly open, eyes wide. The kind of silence that does not feel empty, but heavy with truth. I stood there, my phone still in my hand, and felt something shift inside my chest. Not anger, not sadness, relief, pure, undeniable relief. Adam looked smaller, not physically, but energetically. His shoulders had collapsed inward like a man trying to fold into himself. The confidence he carried so naturally had evaporated. He was no longer the charming husband, was a man caught without a mask. Noor was shaking, real shaking. Her tears were no longer controlled or strategic. They were messy, desperate. She looked around the room like an animal searching for an escape that did not exist. My mother whispered, "Is this true?" Her voice cracked in a way I had never heard before. That sound cut deep, but it also reminded me why I was doing this. Truth is painful, but lies rot people from the inside. Adam opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Just not what it looks like. I almost smiled. That sentence had been spoken by guilty people since the beginning of time. I said calmly, "It looks exactly like what it is." My father stood up slowly. His face was not angry. It was disappointed. And disappointment carries more weight than rage ever could. He looked at Adam and said, "You married my daughter. You stood in front of God and promised to protect her. And you betrayed her with her own sister." Adam lowered his eyes. That was humiliation. No shouting, no violence. Just truth spoken aloud in a room full of witnesses. Noor tried to move toward my mother. My mother stepped back. That single movement felt louder than any slap. Noor froze. Her world was collapsing in real time. The protection she assumed would always exist was gone. I felt my breathing deepen. My chest felt lighter than it had in months. This was what release felt like. Not explosive, expansive. Someone in the room whispered, "How long?" I answered, "Long enough for them to think I would never speak." Adam finally tried to approach me. I stepped back before he could come close. "Do not," I said quietly. That one word stopped him. Power is not volume. It is certainty. He said, "I never meant to hurt you." I replied, "Intent does not erase impact." Noor sobbed, "I am sorry." I looked at her. "You were not sorry when you chose him. You were sorry because you were seen." That truth landed hard. My aunt covered her mouth. My cousin shook her head slowly. The room was no longer neutral. The narrative had shifted. They were no longer the confused ones. They were the exposed ones. I felt validated, not because people were angry for me, but because my reality was no longer questioned. I was no longer this silent woman carrying invisible wounds. My pain had witnesses now. Adam tried to justify himself. He talked about confusion, about loneliness, about mistakes. Each word made him sound smaller, weak, detached from responsibility. I interrupted him gently. "You made choices repeatedly. You chose betrayal when loyalty was available." Silence again. Noor collapsed into a chair, her face in her hands. The family that once protected her now watched her with a different understanding. Not hatred, awareness. That was justice. I felt my shoulders relax. The tension I had been carrying melted away. My hands no longer felt tight. My jaw unclenched. This was what it felt like to reclaim dignity. Adam whispered my name. I did not respond. Not because I was angry, because he no longer deserved access to me. My father said, "You should leave." He was not shouting, he was not threatening. He was finished. Adam looked at me one last time, searching, hoping, regretting too late. I met his eyes and felt nothing. That emptiness was my triumph. He walked out. Nor stayed seated, surrounded by consequences. I did not look back at her. Some endings do not need closure. They need boundaries. As people began to move again, to whisper, to process, I stood there feeling taller than I had ever felt in my life. Not because I had one, but because I had honored myself. My mother came to me slowly. She touched my face like she was making sure I was real. "You were so strong," she whispered. I replied, "I was tired of being quiet." That was the truth. The humiliation they felt was not cruelty. It was consequence. It was accountability. It was the weight of their actions finally landing where it belonged. I walked outside into the cool air. The sky was darker now. The lights from the house glowed behind me. I inhaled deeply. The night smelled clean, like beginning. For the first time in a long time, I was not carrying their secrets. I was carrying my freedom. After that night, life did not magically become easy. Revenge does not erase pain. It rearranges it. It takes the weight off your chest and places it where it always belonged, on the people who created it. I did not wake up the next morning feeling healed. I woke up feeling honest. And honesty is the first step toward real freedom. I moved out of the apartment within a week. Not because I was running, but because I refused to keep breathing in the air of a place that had been contaminated by lies. I took only what was mine: documents, clothes, my dignity. Everything else could stay behind with the memories that no longer deserved space in my life. People asked me if I felt guilty for exposing them publicly. My answer was always the same. Truth does not need permission. Lies survive in private. They die in light. What happened was not cruelty. It was consequence. Karma is not dramatic, does not arrive with thunder. It arrives quietly, wearing the face of accountability. Adam lost the respect of the people who once admired him. Nor lost the protection she believed would always save her. They did not suffer because I wanted revenge. They suffered because actions carry weight, whether we like it or not. I did not forgive them, and I did not need to. Forgiveness is not a requirement for peace. Sometimes, distance is the only form of closure that makes sense. I chose clarity over comfort. I chose self-respect over false harmony. The most powerful lesson I learned was this: silence is not weakness. But silence must end when it starts protecting those who harm you. There is a difference between patience and self-abandonment. I had crossed that line for too long. I would never do it again. I learned to trust my instincts. The moments I ignored. The discomfort I explained away. The signs I softened to protect the image of love. Intuition speaks quietly, but it never lies. I had simply been too afraid to listen. I also learned that betrayal reveals character more than it destroys it. It showed me who they were, but more importantly, it showed me who I was. Someone capable of restraint, someone capable of strategy, someone capable of choosing dignity when chaos was easier. Strength is not loud. Strength is calm in moments where collapse would be justified. People often imagine revenge as something dark and consuming. But mine was clean, precise. It was not fueled by rage, it was fueled by self-worth. I did not want to hurt them. I wanted to stop protecting them. And that changed everything. I rebuilt slowly. New routines, new spaces, new boundaries. I became selective with my trust, not because I was bitter, but because I finally understood its value. Trust is a gift. It's not an obligation. There are days when the memories return. But they no longer control me. They remind me. They remind me that I survived something that could have erased me, and instead it refined me. I no longer chase closure. I create it. I no longer wait for apologies. I move forward without them. I no longer confuse loyalty with silence. If someone is willing to destroy you in secret, they do not deserve your protection in public. That is not revenge. It is self-respect. And self-respect is the most powerful ending any story can have. If this story made you reflect on your own strength, your own boundaries, and your own worth, show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Share in the comments the moment you chose yourself over silence. Your story might be the reminder someone else needs to find their courage.